Okay. I think it's running out.
It is, yeah.
There's supposed to be an anarchist conference happening there sometime soon. And some local people are trying to get down to it.
You here during the day?
We good?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So this is the explanation of VC Time-Slip, this project. Oh, before we start. Yeah, now I need to I want to acknowledge the ancestral, traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and in particular the Musqueam, Squamish, Stolo and Tsleil-Waututh nations on whose territory we are now gathered. Okay. We would have invited an elder from the Coast Salish community to give a blessing to the presentation, but I haven't met any yet. Okay, so this is explaining how PC Time-Slip, this project, is leading to the idea of Cannibal Metaphysics, and I'm going to be very, very quick because I'm going to go through this diagram. And I decided to basically use some of the books that we have in the research library as kind of touchstones for the whole thing. Before I do that, I should say the reason I first came to Vancouver was to do a performance with Randy called Dial M for Zombie in 2000 at the Western Front, and we did a performance piece where we pretended to contact spirits through a technology called Time Stream, which was a technology that was actually developed by spiritualists to try and communicate with people who had passed to the other side. And we played with this technology and performed an idea that anyway, somehow they would come through. That was part of a big festival called 0 Degree Monstrosities, which was a pretty important festival that happened in 2000. While we were doing that, we realised that Philip K. Dick, who was an author we were both very keen on, had been in Vancouver in 1972. And that gave us the idea to do a project about Philip K. Dick, an international project which we call the Bug House, which culminated ultimately in something called Project Valis, which happened between Vancouver and London on the anniversary of Philip K. Dick's death in 1982, March 1982. And on the exact date of his death, we did a link-up between Intermission Space in Vancouver and Gallery 2 in the UK, and we had a kind of live internet performance link-up which went on for about 6 hours, trying to contact the spirit of Philip K. Dick at the moment of his passing 20 years later. So there's this kind of Philip K. Dick current that moves right along, but underneath that there's another current. This is a book which we haven't got here, which is called Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said, which is the book that we began the Book House by doing a simultaneous reading of. It should be here instead of Martian Times, but we should have Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. I was in Vancouver as well to teach Emily Carr, and I taught a course called The Sacred Revolution. And this is really key. Ethnographic Surrealism and the Sociology of the Sacred was the course. And the basis of that course was Georges Bataille. This is his book, The Theory of Religion, which is still completely central. What I don't have is the Accursed Share 3 volumes of his work on economics. But it's absolutely essential for the kind of connection to Vancouver, mainly through this relationship with Marcel Maus's book, The Gift, which influenced Bataille's Accursed Share. And the main thing about Bataille's theory of economics is he has this theory of general economics. And basically it says contemporary capitalist economics deny the fact that economics are fundamentally linked to religion, and religion is fundamentally linked to violence. So we'll come back to that. There's a denial of violence in economics, which is particular to capitalism, which in theory of religion explains how capitalism, particularly after Christianity, exports its violence to the other. So violence is exported. It's always the other who is assumed to be the carrier of violence. So, you know, imperialism isn't violent, it's suppressing violence, this kind of idea. So the externalization of violence is very important for Bataille's theory of general economy and its relationship to religion. But central to it is these notions of sacrifice, gift, mouse or mouse, and potlatch. Now, at the time, I had an idea that potlatch was a traditional practice of Northwest Coast peoples pre-contact, First Peoples of now British Columbia. But I didn't make the connection so much when I was here that actually there were people who used to do it, and since then I've learned a lot more. But at that time, potlatch was seen to be a kind of prototype by Bataille and Marcel Mauss, who was actually arguing for the creation of welfare state, social democracy, and the idea that those who earn a lot from society should give a lot back. So he was arguing for a kind of welfare state socialism in France at the time. They saw potlatch. I'm sure you don't have to explain potlatch. Potlatch? Do you know about potlatch? You do.
Maybe a little.
A little?
Yeah.
Okay. Big ceremonial giving, gift giving, title exchange, rank within, well, various Pacific Coast, Northwest First Nations peoples, but specifically in this case the Kwakwaka'is. We'll come back to it. So these theories of potlatch and gift were seen by left-wing, avant-garde, continental philosophers from the 20s and 30s as kind of anti-capitalist alternatives to capitalist economics. So there was this embracing of so-called primitive modes of expenditure, exchange and reciprocity that were somehow, we could find a model of capitalist acquisitive individualism. There was generosity, giving and sharing. There's a name that I think I've just picked up now, recently from the Thai, called indigenomics, which might be a way of talking about whether or not there is actually a real way of thinking about First Nations economic systems traditionally and how they might relate to contemporary economic systems. In theory of religion, Bataille basically argues that as human beings we've been separated from what he calls animal intimacy. Animal intimacy, he says, is an animal lives in the world like water in water. And he will sometimes call this animal intimacy, or sometimes call it continuity. But whatever it is, he feels that humans, as a creature, are fundamentally separated by their intimacy with the immanence of the world. And that religion is our means of trying to regain this lost intimacy with the continuum. And we do that through various rituals and procedures, one of which for him, importantly, is sacrifice. And there's a special kind of intimacy that happens for Bataille through the ritual of sacrifice. By seeing an animal die, you experience some of this special continuity in animal intimacy. But fundamentally, at the beginning of the book, he says, immanence is given when one animal eats another. He goes on to say that it is always a fellow creature that is eaten. This is hugely important for Cannibal Metaphysics, as we'll come back to. In French, the fellow creature is congénère, which is closely linked to, we'll come back to this idea of kindred. And when we come back to the Cannibal Metaphysics eventually, what we'll see is that the basic idea of Eduardo Viveiros De Castro's Cannibal Metaphysics book is that man may be a wolf to man. I can't remember who said that. Was it Pascal? Anyway, famous saying, man is a wolf to man, but a wolf is a person to a wolf. And the idea is that any animal that eats another animal is a kind of fellow creature, is kin, recognises a state of kinship with the creature that it eats. And it's this kinship with the animals that we eat, which is fundamental to the idea of cannibal metaphysics. Okay, so those are the things I was teaching in Vancouver at Emily Carr in 2000. One of my students was a guy called Steve Calvin, who was in that course. Sometime around 2000, I'm guessing, 2008, I didn't hear from Steve. 2008, I had an email from Steve saying, "Hi John, hope you're doing well. Just thought I'd let you know, I'm living in Alert Bay and I'm attending a lot of potlatch ceremonies. If you're ever back in Canada, come and visit. Now, I wasn't able to get back to Canada till around 2012. So I said, that's great, Steve, I don't know if I can do it, it's a long way to come. So I kind of forgot about it, really. But he kind of followed this potlatch path through a show that he and Warren, thanks Warren, who's kindly helped us organise the show, this Power of Giving exhibition. It was organised between a German museum. Hey, come in. Hi. How are you doing? Sorry, we're starting already.
We're very late.
That's cool. I'm not going to start from the beginning again, though. Is that right?
We were just talking about it in the hallway. Maybe we could ask.
Take
it from the top.
Yeah. So okay.
I'm kidding.
So Warren and Steve were working with Dynamo Arts, and they took this show to Alert Bay, and Steve stayed pretty much. He got to know Bo Dick, started working with Bo, and ended up documenting Bo's potlatches and the winter ceremonies. We'll come back to that. So Steve's hugely important. Okay, so I'm just explaining how we get from BC Time-Slip to Cannibal Metaphysics.
Okay.
Hi, how are you doing? You good?
Great.
Okay, so we got to about here. Okay, then in 2012, I started working for Emily Carr again, teaching remotely the MAA Lower Race course. And on that course was a student called Dion Paul. And Dion Paul is of Coast Salish ancestry, and I was supervising her essay. And she started talking about the decolonisation of thought. And it was the first time I'd come across this idea. And I was like, decolonising thought. How does that work? You know, especially in an educational context, where aren't we kind of like colonists? Isn't this a whole colonial enterprise? Isn't trying to get a master's degree somehow totally tied up with colonisation? And so, if we were to decolonise thought, would we even be doing this kind of education, etc., etc.? And so I was interested in the idea. And I also thought, what's the difference between settlers, the colonists decolonising their thought, and the colonised decolonising their thought? And how do you understand those differences? Anyway, that put the idea of decolonising thought in my head. And at the same time, I was writing a book, which is coming out soon, called Undead Uprising. The reasons for this will become clear as we go on. Undead Uprising is about Haiti, horror, and the zombie complex. It's basically about the way in which Haiti has been represented through what I call the chimerical optics of popular horror. And that the cultural traits of voodoo in Haiti and some of the mythology associated with it has been used as a weapon against Haitians, and especially against Haitian independence. So I was interested in how certain cultural tropes, particularly the zombie, and less significantly, but centrally, cannibalism. Because cannibalism has been one of the dominant tropes of colonialism, by which native peoples, the domination of native peoples has been justified. The word cannibal comes from the word Carib. It was to do with the Carib peoples of the Central America, who were said to be cannibals. There's always somebody who says someone else is a cannibal. And it's those people over there, they're bad people, they eat people. And therefore it became this particular kind of destination. I'll come back to that. Okay. In 2015, I was back in Vancouver, that's last year, and I started to get interested in a group called the Kindred of the Kibo Kift, and there was a book called Plain Indian. What I was interested in is the way in which fantasies of First Nations people have had a fundamental role to play in back-to-nature movements, camping movements, scouting movements, all sorts of basically environmentalist, ecological movements in Europe. The Native American, as you probably know, the image of the Native American became to symbolise someone who was at one with nature, you know, could track animals, had special powers, and that they somehow were the quintessential caretakers of nature. And therefore they were then appropriately, fantasies of Native Americans were appropriated by Europeans, and they started, the Kibo Kift had totem poles. They would carve totem poles and put them up at their camping ceremonies. They would dress up as Indians, And one of the interesting stories from playing Indian, which I don't know if you know, is that during the Boston Tea Party, when the American rebels threw the British tea overboard, they dressed up as Indians to do that, as a raiding party. So they dressed up as in face paint and went. So even though when the Americans were symbolically resisting colonialism, imperialism, the crown, and overthrowing it, they took on the image of Native Americans as the symbolic rebels, the heroic rebels against domination. When in fact, of course, that's precisely what they've been doing. So I was interested in the contradictions of the ways in which the Native American had been used in environmental movements. Then I went to Powell River to see Steve Calvert, who I heard was up there, and we made a trip. And that was the most important trip, really. Because when we went to Powell River, Steve knew I'd been working on Undead Uprising. He'd been documenting Bo Dick's copper-breaking rights at the Parliament buildings in Vancouver Island. He'd also been documenting a number of potlatch ceremonies. And he was very, very involved in the politics of indigeneity and resurgence in Alert Bay and elsewhere. He was very caught up with that. That's very much what he's concerned with. And he gave me this book. He pulled it out and threw it on the table. And it's Hamatsa. Does anyone know this book? Okay. Does anyone know about the Hamatsa? Okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, well, we'll come back to the Hamatsa more. It's the enigma of cannibalism, Hamatsa on the Pacific Northwest coast. It would take quite a long time to explain the Hamatsa, and it's also something I feel most uncomfortable speaking about because I have no initiatory knowledge or first-hand knowledge. All of it comes through books like this. And I learned from doing my work in Haiti, I don't speak as a voodooist. I never speak as a voodooist. I only ever speak of the representations of voodoo by outsiders and observers. Because I don't think it's appropriate to speak from the position of a voodooist without initiatory knowledge into voodoo. And I'm not initiated to voodoo. So I have a similar kind of relationship to this. The point being, Steve recognised this myth of cannibalism and the importance of the myth of cannibalism in colonial discourse had something to do with my work in Haiti, which it did. What was also interesting about the Hamatsa, and there's a lot to say about the Hamatsa, and I don't want to compress it too much in, but basically, the Hamatsa, as I understand it, is a secret dance society of the Kwakwaka'wakw peoples of Vancouver Island, and specifically Alert Bay. I don't know specifically, but I don't know how widely distributed the dance ceremonial is. And it's a cannibal dance. It's called a cannibal dance. And in the dance, the initiate, who is usually a young male, goes away from the village, the community for a while, is subject to the initiation, comes back, performs a dance, which is often very theatrical and dramatic, and they'd be staged biting of people, and they come back as a cannibal. And through the dance and the ceremony, they gradually be tamed or civilized, it's a difficult word to use in this context, but would be made human. So they go from a state of cannibal, animal, man-eater, flesh-eater, to human, non-flesh eater. And the rite of the Hamatsa is a symbolic dance which goes from the man-eater to the non-man-eating human. And that's the Hamatsa ritual. And it's hugely important, and it's performed at winter ceremonials amongst the Kwakwaka'wakw people of Alert Bay. And Steve had been attending such ceremonies. And when he told us an important story of a dance which he saw performed at one of Bo's potlatches, and it's called The Sacrifice of the Indestructible Slave. And when Steve explained, in the context of Hamatsa, the sacrifice of the indestructible slave, what happens in the sacrifice of the indestructible slave is there's a performance in which a slave is seemingly killed and then resurrected, miraculously resurrected. And miraculous resurrections are very much part of the theatrics of the winter ceremonial dances. It's a recurring theme. You can kill somebody and resurrect them, chop their head off. It's like Grand Guignol theatre. It's a kind of, so these symbolic theatres of resurrection, Steve described seeing and said they were absolutely astonishing to see, terrifying. And he told us this at Eagle River, and we imagined how you would make a contemporary version of the sacrifice of the indestructible slave. The reason it has relevance for voodoo is, of course, because of zombies, who are resurrected dead people. And in Haiti, the Bokors, or the Hungans, or the priests who have the power to resurrect dead people, who may or may not have been slaves, is said to be derived from the priests who resurrected Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. And the secrets of resurrection are special code words, that those who have learned the special knowledge can resurrect people from the dead. In Haitian cosmology, there are two names for God. One is Bon Dieu, and one is Grand Maître. And Grand Maître is the one who can control the resurrection of the dead. He's often also seen as a Freemason, and the key figure in Haitian folklore that you may be familiar with is a character called Baron Samedi, or Baron Samedi. Baron Samedi dresses like an undertaker. He's also a mason. This is because the regalia of the masons and the regalia of the undertakers in Haiti were similar. So Baron Samedi is seen to dress like an undertaker and a mason. And the term Grand Maître is the Grand Master, the Grand Master Mason. So these are the great architects. This is a great architect figure who is capable of resurrecting the dead. And I think a lot of the ceremonials of voodoo have to do with this kind of symbolic theatre of resurrection. The other link to voodoo secret societies and the Hamata is the fact that there are these sects within Haiti, sometimes called Secte Rouge, sometimes called the Bizango. These are special secret societies who control rural regions predominantly. Famous Canadian author Wade Davis has written quite a lot about this in his book Circle the Rainbow. He was initiated into the so-called Bizango. And what's important about the Bizango, who are the people who are also seen to have the power to create zombies as a form of punishment, is that in their ceremony they say that they can change skins. So that when they go to a certain role, they believe that they can strip the skin of a human off and a wolf will step out. This is a loup garou, the myth of the werewolf. So that within Bizango secret society rites and ceremonials and mythology, humans can become animals, and animals can become humans. This transposition between the animal and the human is fundamental to that thinking. It's also actually linked to cannibalism, because often humans can be transformed into pigs, and within some of the folklore in Haiti about zombies, and zombies, I won't go too far into zombies right now, it's a complex set of ideas. But one of the stories is that certain Bokors, priests, have the power to turn a human into an animal, and therefore that animal will get butchered and eaten from the butchers. And the meat you're eating, you may think you're eating a pig, but in fact you're eating a human who's been converted, transformed into a pig. This is a kind of very common aspect of zombie folklore belief in Haiti. So there was these correlations between the work I've been doing with voodoo and the Hamata mythology.